If you clicked on this video and you love low-budget indie movies as much as you love high-budget blockbusters, you probably love Clerks as much as you love Star Wars, then you are definitely in the right place. This is my fall indie movie preview for fall 2024. My name is Brian. I am Dragon Movie Guy, and this is the Dragon Movie Guy podcast. Hey everybody, Dragon Movie Guy here. Welcome to another episode of the Dragon Movie Guy podcast. This is the fall indie movie preview where I talk about all of my most anticipated fall independent movies that I am really excited to talk about so that hopefully we can have a discussion about low budgets, creative freedom from really talented storytellers, and which ones I think you guys should be looking out for and pay attention to and possibly go watch in theaters or on streaming. Joining me to talk about our most anticipated independent movies of fall 2024 is a second-time guest to the Dragon Movie Guy podcast. You know him for his signature series, 8 Questions With, and his Blu-ray and DVD hunting series. I'm talking, of course, about Patric from Have Cheetah Will View. Patric, welcome back to the Dragon Movie Guy podcast.
Glad to be here.
There is only so much height any wave can sustain before it comes crashing down. I'm sorry.
I wish you were a completely different person.
The Outrun. This is Saoirse Ronan, Irish actress, multiple Oscar nominated. She's got a little bit of a drinking problem in this film, it looks like.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about The Outrun.
It's based off of a true story. A lady named Amy Liptrot. It's her based off her memoir, and she's trying to, be a young alcoholic, trying to stay clean and sober. I think the title, The Outrun. I think you're trying to outrun your addiction. Trying to stay ahead of it, trying not to let it catch you. She's living in some really isolated places, and it's a struggle. If you think about it, when people fight addiction, one of the worst places you could think that you could be on would be an island, a literal island. And because there's no place really for you to run, you have to really be strong and ready to go, to outlast it. And I think it's just really it's a movie about a young lady who's trying to do that. I think this is going to be right in her wheelhouse. She is an excellent actress. I mean, some could say she's top 10. It's a small indie film, not a lot of bangs and whistles to it. It's just one character study and how a young lady is, struggles to stay clean and sober. And based because of the lady actually wrote her book and got it out there, that I think despite her struggles, I think at the end of the movie, I think she's going to be, I won't say all right, but I'll say that she's sober at the end of the movie.
I'm not familiar with the book for this film. It's a lot of people that I haven't heard of before. It takes place a little bit in London to start off with, and then goes to the island and where she tries to get clean and stay clean.
Where she becomes like an amateur bird watcher, and that helps her. Like she's trying to find the elusive birds around her island, which would be interesting. It's an interesting story, I think.
And this is by writer-director Nora Fingscheidt. I've never heard of director Nora Fingscheidt before, but it is interesting because she has a pretty big IMDb filmography, mostly European productions, but I have not heard of any one of these films projects before, including some television. For me, this will be interesting if I do go around watching this film. It'll be the first example that I'm seeing of her work. Anytime you have Saoirse Ronan in there, ever since her first film, when Peter Jackson discovered her when she was a teenager, she's been in so many Oscar films. It's not that she can't have fun in a movie, because she does do a few fun roles here and there, but she does so many deep, depressing, dark roles without them dragging you down into the mud. It'll be interesting to see whether Saoirse Ronan, as a hardcore alcoholic, can take us into that world without making everything really depressing and making me feel like I need to have a drink after the film comes out. What is your favorite Saoirse Ronan role? Are you talking like Danish Girl, or
this is like a Kristen Stewart type actress for me? I have a lot of her movies.
In a good way or bad way?
In a good way. I'm not the biggest Kristen Stewart fan, but I think I have like 75% of her filmography. I just gotten it through complete random accidents, and I've gotten it all for next to nothing. I actually did buy one. I did buy a Personal Shopper from a Criterion sale.
I've not seen Personal Shopper yet, but it is definitely on my list of things I want to see. Tell me more about The Outrun and why it made it onto your list, because there's a lot of good indie movies to talk about. So why Why this one
Because
on your
because
list?
because I do like her. The movie I like the best would probably be the one that people talk about the most, would probably be Lady Bird. And also she did the, like you said, she did the Peter Jackson movie, The Lovely Bones. Plus she's a lot more funnier than people realize. She has a great sense of humor. She actually hosted a Saturday Night Live, and
Yep.
she was funny as hell in that. I mean, she had chops. She had some comedy chops there, but I don't know if she's necessarily attracted to that. Because you think by now that she would actually have done a comedy. I don't think she's attracted to that genre.
Well, she
'Cause I
did.
don't think-
She did see you run or see me run. It was sort of like a 1920s all-star cast where it was like a solve a murder kind of thing, and she was like a young cop trying to assist the person solving the murder. Not a great film, but she was really good in it. Sort of as the young impressionable meter maid type thing, where she's helping assist the alcoholic detective.
I guess I would say that she hasn't done any straight comedy. I think maybe she's done some comedy dramas. Like Lady Bird was. There are some moments in Lady Bird that were humorous, but I don't necessarily don't think you call Lady Bird a comedy. I
Yeah,
think I think you call it more like a dramedy or drama with comedic elements into it.
yeah.
But as far as just a straight, like Jennifer Lawrence did, with the movie she did last summer, that was a straight out laugh a minute, comedy. And up to that point, she really hadn't done anything, like that. So it was a first thing for her, and maybe this is for her as well.
The Academy just in general doesn't nominate comedies.
But they do nominate for stories where someone has an ailment, disfigurement, or an addiction. It is tailor made. That's
Yeah,
Oscar, and that's the cynicism side of us right here talking about it. But it really is like that. So and so struggling with the alcohol issue or drug addiction or whatever. Or they're handicapped. They lost their hand feeding a cat or something like that. Well, that's Oscar. Do I feel like this is a setup for her for an Oscar run? It doesn't really feel that way to me. It just feels like this is like almost like a passion project for her. Something that she wanted to do. She's not expecting to get nominated for anything. It's not going to be pushed. I mean, this is too small of a movie, even with her in the lead. She may get a nomination. I see this as being a really good movie, but I don't see this putting her on the Oscar map.
I don't really see this as being a particular Oscar favorite. To me, what this looks like is it looks like a good story, and it looks like Saoirse Ronan giving back to the Irish film industry, trying to bring people up with her, get some exposure, get an acting card, that sort of thing, as well as telling a good story. It didn't quite make it onto my list. When I was putting my list together, I was going for a little bit happier films, because we do have such a good choice of indie films for our list that...
Wasn't Borderland a comedy?
Well, it tried to be. Apparently, it didn't do too well. I haven't seen it yet, but yeah, all the reviews are not too good on it. As far as the Outrun goes, it just didn't quite hit me as being unique enough if you're talking about addiction from films that we've seen before. I love the on-location shooting. I love the fact that it's not just shot on a soundstage somewhere with a giant green screen. I like that they actually went out to the ocean and went to an island. It looks like it's really well done.
I think you deserve the chance to make whatever kind of future you want for yourself, no matter what the rules say.
Everything is a transaction.
We get paid.
Everyone wins.
My number 6 is Bad Genius, and this stars Callina Liang, Benedict Wong, who is Wong from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and Taylor Hickson. Callina Liang plays a gifted high school student, daughter of a immigrant, and they don't have a lot of money. But she's such a genius that a really high-end private school decides to let her in on a scholarship just to give her access to all the best education, all of the best resources, the best teachers, all that kind of stuff. A really, really smart character breaks bad. At least that's what it looks like in the trailers and in the title of this film. It looks like she starts running a cheating ring or a test-taking something or other. Benedict Wong is a disappointed father looking at his daughter. This looks like a super, super stylized film. Film festival type vibes, a lot of close-ups, fast whip pans, that sort of thing, as she's trying to navigate being a poor kid at a rich kid's school when she's smarter than everybody, and she knows that she messed up while trying to fit in. So we're getting a lot of quick edits, we're getting a lot of close-ups on her face, a lot of close-ups on her clicking a pen. It looks really stylized. It looks really well put together, and I love anytime we get a show like like House, where the main character is that much smarter than everyone else. There is something fascinating about that to me.
Bad Genius, man. They couldn't have come up with a better title though. I mean, we already had Bad Santa. We've had bad T-shirts. We had, it's like, I just feel like for an interesting story like that, I think you would come up with a better hook than that. I think that movie could get a little lost in the falls. It does help when you have an interesting title.
The creative thing is to want to come up with a title that hooks you. You're right. That's creative. That's like, oh, that's funny. That's clever. Bad Genius is not. It's very straightforward. It's very clear. It doesn't tickle the brain at all when talking about looking at the trailer for this story. Then again, you could have a really unique title like Zathura, which is one of Jon Favreau's films that no one went to go see because no one could figure out what the heck Zathura was. So to me, it looks like a really good drama with a lot of stylized performances, and that's why it's number 7 on my list. Who's going to be number 6?
Who's playing the young student? Is there anybody we know?
Callina Liang is her name. That's that she's playing the bad genius.
Of course, Benedict Wong. That'll draw a few heads to the movie too, because because he's a good actor. I'm glad to see him.
The master of the mystic arts.
That's right.
What would happen if the master of the mystic arts had a daughter and moved to America?
That's what I was talking about earlier. Is like it's sort of nice now to come back and see a lot of these Marvel Universe actors come back and do regular movies again. Without being plastered all over the place. For the next MCU movie, now they're going back and they're doing smaller films and actually acting for a change.
Well, and to be fair, this looks like the type of performance by him that it looks like this is a film where he's not in it a ton. It looks like we're mostly following the daughter's character as she goes through school and goes through the rich person's world as a non-rich person. And it looks like he's sort of the character that's grounding her. That's sort of, the dad who's disappointed, who's trying to let his daughter, go out in the world and fly, but, she's messing up a little bit here and there. So he's got to put her in check. To me, it looks like he's not in it a ton, and I could be 100% wrong there. But it looks like a really good performance by Callina Liang. I've never seen her in anything else before. This trailer is the first time I've ever seen her in anything. So I think this film will probably live or die based off of her performance.
I don't know if I would go out to see it per se, but I definitely, if I see it coming through my library, I would definitely grab it.
It doesn't look like it's necessary to go watch it in theaters other than to support the independent film industry, but it does look at least worth watching once it does come out on streaming.
Who's this Santa?
Hey, Santa's handing out presents!
Looking forward to the best Christmas ever.
I decided to go heavy drama with number 6. I think this could roll us with some Oscars. I think people are going to be totally like. Of course, I'm talking about Art the Clown and Terrifier 3. And yes, we are Art the Clown fans. We are literally Art. So had a friend of mine drew this because he surrounded Art with some cats because Art the Clown is a cat lover, and I love telling everybody about that. But Terrifier 3, in all seriousness, I think it definitely is going to be the horror movie of the fall and the winter. Everybody's eyes are going to be looking at it. The first 2 movies did really, really well. This really is going to be the first time seeing Art on the big screen. And I'm not sure how they're going to react to it. Because Damian Leone and David Howard Thornton, those guys come out with some crazy-ass scenes in their films.
I never even heard of Terrifier 1 when that first film came out. When Terrifier 2 came out 2 or 3 years ago, that one was one that was a very silent hit. It didn't get a ton of advertising, but word of mouth, at least amongst the local film critics community here in Vegas, everyone was talking about that film. I never did get around to see it because horror is one that I don't really watch as many horror films, but Terrifier 2 was one that I at least considered because, for whatever reason, grabbed everyone in the zeitgeist and just grabbed everyone by the throat. So the fact that now we're getting Art the Clown on a Christmas movie.
Brian, it's a loving homage to our favorite holiday of the year. That's all it is. I mean, that's it's Santa art. It's Santa art. I mean, look at it. He's giving presents to everybody. I mean, Santa's here. I mean, what more could you want? This scene is the one scene in Terrifier 3 that everybody's talking about, and people were crying about it, bitching about it because it showed Art the Clown looks like he's going to kill a kid. Well, guess what, boys and girls? We've already done that in movies for a long, long time. This is not going to be the first. Seeing a little 8-year-old get an axe in the head is not going to be all that shocking. If you're a horror fan, it's not.
And look,
If you're mainstream, you might go like, "Well, that's sort of mean."
it's a horror film. It's a gross out horror film.
Right.
It's a hard R film, right? It's
yeah. I mean, that's what it's supposed to be. Art is not. He's a prolific serial killer. He's a slasher film. I just couldn't understand why people were crying about it.
But it looks like it's purposely a low budget type film. And when they show the title card on the trailer, it's a manual zoom in, like they used to do in the 70s. So is this film kind of calling back to 70s horror films?
It's only the style of the film. It's deliberately on purpose. It's not for the lack of money.
But is the first two films, though, were they deliberately done kind of low budget, or at least in that style?
No, the first two were definitely low budget. The first one was very low budget. You're right, it came out. It wasn't the first time Art had popped up. He popped up in two other independent anthology films, and before he got his first film. And then, of course, that was a word of mouth spread. And then when the second one came out, same thing. It got a little bit bigger budget, and then the word of mouth put it in the theaters where it did really, really well. This movie, both those movies have made a lot of money. So he got himself a proper budget this time, and it's going to be very exciting to see what he does with it. We don't necessarily want to see another 2.5 hour long movie.
That's the best part about horror films, is that they're generally 90 minutes in and out, and whatever the body count is.
Terrifier 2 was 2 hours and 20 minutes, I think.
Jason Patric from Speed 2 and a bunch of other stuff, Sleepers, and Daniel Roebuck. Daniel Roebuck, of all things, was on Matlock as a series regular 30 years ago. So I have no idea how old he is now or what he's doing in this film, but very few actual other actors that I recognized in the on the cast list.
He really is a jack of all trades actor. I mean, he could do comedy. He does episodic TV. He could do drama. In fact, he did a movie called Saving Grace. Ended up being one of my top 5 films of the year. It was a magnificent movie. Loved it. Daniel Roebuck he's one of those actors that when you see him in a film, you feel a little bit more comfortable watching it because you know you're going to be getting a good performance from a very steady actor.
Final thoughts on David Howard Thornton. I probably should have brought him up earlier. He looks like just a regular old dude. He looks really scary in this Art the Clown makeup. Doesn't look like anything like him. Have you seen anything else with David Howard Thornton, and what do you think of him as an actor outside of this role?
He's a good actor. He did a movie called The Mean One, which was a play on The Grinch. They couldn't say The Grinch because of copyright, but they said it The Mean One. And so it was a story about the Grinch meeting a grown-up Cindy Lou and battling over Christmas. Here's what I honestly really hope for. I really hope that these guys come out there and make a boatload of money. I really do. But after that, honestly, I want to see him do something else with his face in front of the camera. He's done 3 Terrifier movies. It's time to move on and do some serious acting because he has it in him. And same thing with Damian. It's like, okay, look, you came out there, you made 3 great classic horror films, but they put Art the Clown out there 2 weeks ahead of Halloween Ends. And I was thinking to myself, going like, man, that's going to be rough. That's rough if everybody's amped up for Halloween Ends. Well, Art dominated. Not only did the movie hold, it had legs. It went up against Halloween Ends and did very well and still brought in a lot of people and a lot of money. That's just no way. He's going to get buried.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how many screens Terrifier 3 gets. It's up against a lot of other high-profile horror films coming out for the Halloween season. So it'll be interesting to see how well it does and how many screens it actually gets.
If I get married to an American, I wouldn't have to go back to Russia.
Okay, so who should marry?
It's from director Sean Baker, who a couple of years ago did a film called Red Rocket with Simon Rex, who used to be on MTV. It kind of made the film festival circuit, and it got a lot of attention. You know, it's like a hard R, very edgy, kind of adult theme that has a really cheeky sense of humor. Anora is not a sequel in any way, but it's from the same director, and it looks like it has a very similar sensibility. Anora is the title character. She plays a sex worker who runs into the son of a Russian oligarch, sinks her claws into him. They get married in Vegas, and of course the Russian oligarch father is none too happy. But this is not a comedy, it's a drama. It looks like it's really well put together. This also is a film that was on the film festival circuit and has been getting a little bit of pub. And Mikey Madison has been doing a lot of young adult type content, a lot of drama work. This is really the first time I've seen her do more of a quote-unquote adult role where she's not playing a teen or that sort of thing. This is her playing an adult, playing someone who works with her body. They clearly come to Vegas. They shot in Vegas. I mean, there's some shots in this trailer from Fremont Street, from some of the bigger casinos here in town. So the fact that, yeah, it's kind of playing on some stereotypes and some streaming shows that we've seen before, but it looks like a really good character study with Mikey Madison as Anora. The rest of the cast I haven't really seen or heard much of anything they've done, but Sean Baker, I'm a huge fan of his work, going back several films.
She looks like she's 18.
Believe she's 22, 23, and if they were shooting here in Vegas, then she probably would have had to be 21 at least to go into any of the casinos. That would be my guess. Like anything in Hollywood, though, people who are 30 play like they're in high school. So everyone in Hollywood tends to age a little bit slower. And honestly, too, it takes so long to build up a career. It doesn't surprise me that she's playing younger. This is one that I'll probably watch in theaters. Again, it looks like a lot of handheld, off-the-shoulder type stuff. It's different locations, actual cinematography, actually going to a casino, actually going to not just a soundstage somewhere, actual storytelling, and actual conflict between a prostitute and a Russian oligarch. Very fascinating. Have you seen the trailers for this one?
I have not. I am new to Mikey Madison. I have never seen her do anything, so I have to go and look at her and see what movies that I can find with her. Because a lot of these younger faces I'm not familiar with, and this is one thing I will say about some streaming services. It's a great place to discover them. Like I don't know really too much about Sydney Sweeney, and I'm like, okay, I don't know anything about her, but I found out that she has a movie out on she had a movie out on Tubi, and I went and watched that. That movie was bonkers.
It's a good way of putting it. Yeah, that's a really good one. I'm a huge fan of Sydney Sweeney. She's kind of hit bigger and hit more mainstream though than Mikey Madison has. I couldn't even tell you the exact films off the top of my head that Mikey Madison has done, but she's done a lot of the, like, you know, with Rachel Sennett, a lot of those type films, a lot of young adult stylized kind of films. This to me looks like one of her first starring roles, at least in terms of a film that I can remember. So so I'm looking forward to this.
Do you think a movie like this will attract an audience? I mean, you know, a wide audience. It doesn't really have that sense. I mean, it looks good. Do you think it'll get a wide release?
No, and if it did, it would probably fail miserably. I live in Las Vegas. There's 2.5 million, 3 million people here in town. There's 3 theaters that show indie movies. So I would guess that this film will be in those indie theaters for 3 or 4 weeks tops. To me, this doesn't look like a film that will have a wide mass appeal, but that's part of the appeal of indie movies, is that you don't have to be a 4-quadrant film. You don't have to be Jurassic Park or Star Wars. You can make a smaller, stylized film telling a story that is more edgy, that a lot of people will just go, yeah, that's not for me. So to me, that's part and parcel of what drew me to this film. Is this is a film that looks like it's not trying to be something that it's not, and it's trying to tell a story that you couldn't do in a big blockbuster. You couldn't have Steven Spielberg directing Anora. Or if you did, it would be a really, really different film. To me, this looks like one that will live on in streaming in the same way that Red Rocket has. I don't know which streaming service it's headed towards, but yeah, to me, this looks like a film that was strictly made for the film festival, indie film theaters, and then streaming.
I actually picked up Red Rocket from my library. They
Oh,
actually had
yeah?
a copy of it. Yeah, I actually picked it up there for a quarter, and yeah, one of the copies of the library had, and they discarded it, and
Really?
inside the bookstore, and I went in there, and I knew I knew A24, so I picked it up, and so I saw it was A24, so I got it for a quarter.
25 cents is a lot less than what it would have cost you to watch at a film festival. So
That's right. That's
fascinating, and my guess is Anora will probably, if it does get a DVD release, will probably be very similar.
What is your name?
George. Why can't you tell me? Where's my boy?
Make a wish.
One wish.
This is another film with Saoirse Ronan.
That's right.
I haven't really seen a trailer for this yet.
But that's okay because I know the subject matter really, really well.
Yeah, it looks like it's surrounding the London during World War II during the Blitzkrieg. Yes?
During the Blitz of 1940. And that's when Germany was bombing. Hitler was trying to bomb Britain into submission. Tens of thousands of people died. Millions remained homeless. And it's the story of a young woman who's trying to find her kid. Her son is missing, and so she's trying to find it in a war-torn London. And that's all while there's air raids happening and bombs are dropping, and I can't even imagine what it would have been like to have been a parent there. It's funny, it's like they touched upon something in the Chronicles of Narnia in the first movie that shows the kids were being shipped to their grandparents. And that's really what happened in Great Britain. A lot of, the English, they what they did was they took all the kids from the city, the ones that they could, and they moved them out of the city, out of harm's way. But it looks like this story here is that she doesn't get a chance to do that. Missing, and she's trying to find him through a very horrific event. Now, this movie, on the other hand, I didn't know about Outrun getting her an award, but this movie sounds really, really good. I can see something rumbling here if it's received well, which I think it will. And what's really cool about it is they're going to release it in November. The elections are happening in November. This is the type of movie that we all need to watch. I probably should have moved it higher on my list, but it's a composition of every mother and father in London during that time. It's important to see what we fought against, what we helped fight against. Remember what we did it for. Remember remember all the Britons that died. Remember all the Americans that died to stop a madman. I think World War II movies we don't get very much of them. I mean, since Saving Private Ryan, I don't really think there's been a really major World War II movie on that level since then.
Definitely not as much in the last couple years. Very fascinating, by the way, too, just showing Saoirse Ronan, very attractive woman. Very fascinating, though. She can fit in a World War II film with her hair done up and lipstick and all that kind of stuff. But just look at that the difference between this still and the still for the Outrun. That's just fascinating to me. The difference that she can make in her appearance and her body language and her makeup. Two completely different characters.
The best actresses can do that. I mean, in the Outrun, she looks like a teen. In the Blitz, she looks like a mother. The best actresses can do that. Meryl Streep could do that. Julianne Moore, she could also do that. She could appear as the sweetest lady, and then she can appear as not. Angelica Houston was like that. Annette Bening, my girl Haley Bennett, she also has that gift. I don't know if you've seen this, it's called She Is Love. The first 10 minutes of that movie, you wouldn't even know what you're watching. You wouldn't even know it's her. I think it's a gift. Not every actress can do it.
To be honest, I was a little surprised that I didn't see any Haley movies on your list for this fall. Little surprised there because she is a very prolific actress. She works a lot.
She actually is shooting a movie called The Luckiest Man in the World. That's going to be coming out pretty soon. And then she also shot a TV series for Apple TV, an action series. I think the Blitz has potential to do big business.
Interesting, too, because Harris Dickinson is an up-and-coming British actor. I believe he was in the latest Kingsman movie that came out that was not very good, but he was decent in it. It's got a lot of talented people involved, so...
You don't look happy.
Well, I feel like you're high on mushrooms, so you don't know
I don't have a gap in my teeth. Yeah, wear your retainer. I am a very young adult.
It looks a little bit like Freaky Friday. It looks a little bit like a lot of different young adult films that we've seen over the years. It's a comedy. It's got an actress I've never seen before named Maisy something or other. Aubrey Plaza plays the adult version of this character. Basically...
my old ass.
Yeah, my old ass. This is a girl who goes out, gets drunk. Apparently she does some mushrooms with her and her friends, and they go out to the lake, they do the mushrooms, they get drunk, they get high. She wakes up and sees herself at 40, or 39, as the trailer points out, in the form of Aubrey Plaza. This looks like nothing else other than just an indie comedy with Aubrey Plaza in it. I love, it's not even clear as to whether Aubrey Plaza is supposed to be physically there and interacting with other characters in the film, or whether she's just sort of like I see dead people kind of thing, whether she's just an hallucination and the other characters in the film don't see her. It is fascinating, though, the idea of a drunk college student or drunk, late teens, early 20s, going that time in their life, talking to themselves at 39, 40 years old, and the kind of lessons that you could learn, the kind of comedy that you can mine. And it's weird, too, seeing Aubrey Plaza, because I think we're so used to seeing Aubrey Plaza as the younger character in Parks and Rec, like being younger than all the other characters around her. So seeing her...
She's actually now 40 herself.
Yeah, so seeing her kind of playing relatively older to other characters is sort of interesting. Emily the Criminal that came out 2 years ago was really, really good. That was a good indie film. She's done a ton of indie films over the last 5-10 years. Black Bear was one that I watched of hers. That was really good. That was really well done. She always chooses slightly different types of roles to do. So
I love that a lot because this is gonna sound bad, but I gotta say it. So this one of the reasons why I do like Haley Bennett a lot, and is the fact that if you really think about her career, she only appeared in a couple of really big movies, and that's her choice to make the smaller movies, to make the independent films, because she could be cast as a leading lady easily, but she chooses not to. She always takes, in fact, the series that she did for Apple TV. I dare say, honestly, that'll probably be the biggest commercial thing she's done since she was in The Magnificent Seven. And The Magnificent Seven came out, I think, 2007. But I think they would say anything with Aubrey Plaza. It's like she is known she's almost like our generation's Parker Posey. She's really well known for being really weird and kooky, or Zooey Deschanel, if you want to. And she's known for that, and that's her reputation. And look at all the movies that she's done. I think Emily the Criminal was probably the most mainstream movie she actually did. And she's really cute and spunky and all. And that's been her card.
She's done mainstream stuff too. I mean, she's also done. She was really good in The White Lotus season 2, and then also kind of a smaller role, but it was kind of her as a comedy team with Anna Kendrick from Pitch Perfect. It was Aubrey Plaza and Anna Kendrick in Mike and Dave Need Wedding Dates.
Oh, right, yeah.
With Zac Efron. That was like a big budget comedy, and I think she kind of stole the show a little bit in that film.
Yeah, I think that movie did pretty well. I think to remember it.
I saw it in theaters, and I own it on Blu-ray. I'm a huge fan of Mike and Dave Need Wedding Dates. This, though, is kind of more of her doing the indie routes. It'll be interesting to see whether she actually her character is physically there or not, whether she's interacting with past versions of herself, or if she's just a hallucination. To me, this looks like a quintessential early fall comedy, kind of set in summer still, kind of like in an Indian summer type thing. So I'm looking forward to My Old Ass. Plus, anytime, my guess is, too, Aubrey Plaza probably says my old ass at some point with her.
I'm sure she probably says it more. I'm sure she says it probably more than one time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Man, I don't know what that is. Maybe it's the algorithm or what, but hardly ever see any notices for trailers coming through my feed. I see people doing trailer reactions, but as far as trailers themselves, from the companies, I don't really see them at all coming across my feed.
Huh. The quirks of the YouTube algorithm.
You could spend the rest of the night here.
I could spend the rest of my life here.
This was our home.
This has a sense of a Darren Aronofsky film. I had the same vibe in hearing about this movie. It's Robert Zemeckis, of all people. He's the one that's doing this, but this screams to see like Darren Aronofsky. You think of Mother, and it had this, to me, when I was reading about this, it had the same sort of vibe. So I was really surprised to see that Zemeckis is doing it. And that one small patch of ground, they're going to go back to the beginning and cover that ground. That just boggles my mind, the concept of that. That's a kind of originality that Hollywood is desperately missing. To actually do something that interesting. The ground that your house is on right now, and someone to come up there and say, I'm going to go back and take you back on a Wayback Machine, back when it was just a barren ground with nothing there, and then forward it up to where we're at today on that one single patch of ground. It's one of the most original ideas that I've heard since forever. I'm fascinated with it. Are they going to be played fast? Is it going to be played slow? Are we going to slow down and get to know any of the characters? Because there's going to be thousands of years to cover in a couple hours. So I'm just curious to see how he's going to do it.
The last time I checked, we didn't have like a full trailer yet. My impressions of it are from the teaser trailer that came out, where it was mostly focusing on, at least in the teaser trailer, on Tom Hanks and Robin Wright.
Well, that's the calling. They have to do that in order to get people to come into the theater. But it's going to be this way.
Yeah, so the teaser part of the trailer was them aging over time and the de-aging, sort of in the same way that Robert Zemeckis was using a lot of cutting-edge digital effects, Kennedy's lips and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's 30 years later. Exactly 30 years later. To me, there's a little bit of an uncanny valley factor, and the de-aging to me doesn't look good. It doesn't look like Tom Hanks. I mean, Tom Hanks and Robin Wright have been famous for so long. We know what they look like. This still, and this is not even a screen grab from the trailer. This is actually one of the production stills that is on IMDb. The still there's an uncanny valley there that just looks false, that looks fake, that looks like AI. It looks like someone was doing a de-aging program on just a random picture of Tom Hanks and Robin Wright. It doesn't look real to me. That's part of my thing of just AI and CGI.
This is the type of movie, though, that you really have to overlook that. You have to get lost in the story. See what Zemeckis is trying to do.
And he's a brilliant filmmaker, and I love Robert Zemeckis. Pretty much everything he's done. The film that this does remind me of a little bit, the one that Tom Hanks did with Halle Berry, where they were aging through the years.
Cloud Atlas,
yeah. And that was the one where Tom Hanks famously in one scene was playing an Asian guy. Oddly, that film was not particularly good. It was an interesting thought experiment. I know this film doesn't look exactly like that film, but that was the only thing that kind of reminded me a little bit of it. But yeah, I've never seen anything else other than Cloud Atlas that kind of reminds me of this film.
Tom Hanks in that picture, he sort of looks like Andy Samberg.
He does. And Robin Wright, if anything, looks like Elizabeth Banks in that, which is, they look nothing alike.
I think they have to put their market around Tom Hanks and Robin Wright. From what I understand what the movie is, they're not going to be in there a whole lot. I mean, the concept is really interesting to me. I think we get the same response. People are going to go into this movie and they're going to come out and they're going to be shaking their heads going like, I don't get it. And you just feel sorry for them because it's like, well, that's because your imagination in your brain has atrophied so much that you can't you can't think outside 15 seconds in front of you. I have to admit, I'm very eager to see this one.
How come the nuns were never secret hookers when we were in school?
Oh, hell no! Sister Sugar Walls.
We're definitely seeing that.
The 4:30 movie. This is the latest film by writer-director Kevin Smith. We know Kevin Smith from Clerks, Clerks 2, Clerks 3, And it even says so in the trailer. Let's be honest, it's probably going to be Clerks 4, too. Along with Mallrats and every other Kevin Smith film that comes out. Look, I'm a huge Kevin Smith fan, and this film is... I don't like the title of the 4:30 movie. It kind of looks like the kid as the lead character in this film is sort of a proxy for a young version of Kevin Smith in the mid-'80s. It's, it's a coming-of-age film. It's a character who likes going to the movies. It's a guy who wants to get a date with a pretty girl that he likes. It's him and his friends. And the cast is surrounded by all of the guys that have been in Kevin Smith movies before, along with a couple of younger actors that I've never heard of before. Anything to me that is Kevin Smith is worth watching. The actors playing the main characters in this film, I just want to give them a name shout-out. Austin Zager, Sienna Agudong.
I like the cast. I mean, you got Sam Richardson. I see Sam Richardson there.
Yeah, Ken Jeong, Jason Lee.
He was in Werewolves Within. That's a fantastic film. Kate Minucci, I saw her when she was in Scrubs. She's very cute. Adam Pally. Did you ever see Happy Endings?
Yes, it's been a long time that I've seen that.
Oh my God, I love that show. That show had me. Oh, that show's so funny. DJ Bader, of course, he's the voice of Batman now.
Drew Carey show.
Great cast. Yeah. And this is a Kevin Smith movie. Wow, I'm sort of impressed that he got all those people to come out and do his movie.
Well, and then Rosario Dawson is also in there. It is really interesting to see sort of a generational shift taking place here, because with Harley Quinn Smith playing the actress within the movie within the movie kind of thing. It is sort of interesting to see whether or not this will be clearly a coming-of-age film, but whether it's told from more of a 40, 50-year-old Kevin Smith looking back at his youth sort of thing, and being more of that perspective where I think we're so used to seeing Kevin Smith as the young filmmaker, Mallrats. It might be interesting to see if his perspective on filmmaking and young love and romance has changed over the years.
The young actress in this sort of looks like a more tanned Gina Davis.
Yeah. I was actually kind of thinking of a younger version of Selena Gomez a little bit too, with her bangs like that. She kind of looks like a young Paula Abdul.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm a huge Kevin Smith fan. Even the weird ones like Red State and The Walrus. There's usually something there that's worth watching. So
you know what? I'd much rather him do stuff like Red State. I mean, I really hope that this movie here has nothing to do with the Askew universe. I hope it's totally separate and different, and there's no connection to it at all, because I just can't do more. I mean, I know Clerks 3 came out and did really well, and had a lot of heart to it. But man, every time Kevin Smith comes out and tries to do, he always goes back. It's like if the movie just doesn't come out and doesn't do really well right off the bat, he's so insecure as a filmmaker that he's like, okay, well, that didn't work, so I got to go back and do another Clerks movie.
Or if anything, I think Kevin Smith likes supporting his friends and family and coworkers. A lot of the View Askew universe is his friendship with Jason Mewes. So it's Jay and Silent Bob. His real-life friendship with Jason Mewes, I think, is a lot of the reason why we go back to those characters so often. Also because, they reflect directly on Kevin Smith and where he's gone in his life, where he's from.
I'll give credit where credit's due. I mean, Kevin Smith, he was smart. He was living a completely horrendous lifestyle, and he almost died from it. And he did come out of it, and he made the right changes. He lost all that weight. I mean, I think he lost his body weight, half his body weight. He looks great.
I am definitely in the Kevin Smith superfan category. It doesn't sound like you are.
I like him. You know what? I really like him a lot. I love Dogma. Dogma is my favorite Kevin Smith movie in a heartbeat. But I think he's a really good speaker, and I have two of his documentaries where he went to different colleges and did a speaking tour.
Is that the Too Fat for 40, the one where he got kicked off the Southwest Airlines flight?
Yes, I got that one, and then I got the one where he ended up telling the story about him they wanted to hire him to do a Superman movie. The super producer at the time, he used to be the hairdresser for Cher. He came up there and said that he wanted John Peters. He says, I want a spider in the last, I want Superman to be fighting a spider in the last for the main fight. And then he goes, I'm probably not going to do that. And then they did Wild Wild West, and they had the spider in the last. That story had me in tears. I was laughing my ass off of that one.
I would love to see a film on that. So Hollywood, if you're listening, ding.
That's the winner.
Yes. So look, I am a complete shill for Kevin Smith. If he makes a bad film, I'll say so. Clerks 2 was not a great film. I've said that many times. But I go back to Clerks 1 in theaters when I was in high school. So I watched his first film in theaters.
I heard Clerks 3. I heard was very, very good.
It's excellent.
And I picked it up at the library. Stop me if you heard this before. I did get a copy of that from the library for $0.25.
If you like the whole story about the documentary, the Too Fat for Flying or Too Fat for 40 kind of thing, there are some references in Clerks 3 to that. I don't want to have any other spoilers there, but yeah, if you like Kevin Smith and you like his story, I think you'll like Clerks 3. As far as the 4:30 show, the 4:30 movie goes, I'm just because of that, I think the trailer looks good. It doesn't look great. It looks good. But Kevin Smith with his name attached to it is entirely what I'm going with on here. And that's why it's my number 3. And I'm a little surprised that it's not higher on my list because it is a Kevin Smith film. I've basically seen every Kevin Smith film in theaters except for maybe 1 or 2 here or there over the years. So
This is a conclave, Aldo. It's not a war.
It is a war. No sane man would want the papacy.
The men who are dangerous are the ones who do want it.
Ray Fiennes, Stanley Tucci, John Lithgow talks about the process of choosing a new pope.
This sort of reminds me a little bit like if it was the Da Vinci Code, Angels and Demons, seen through the clergy itself. It is a mystery. And I love religious thrillers. I like supernatural thrillers. The religious thrillers, I'm all in for those. These are definitely 4 of my favorite actors right here. So this is a no-brainer. And the director of the movie is Edward Berger, who did All Quiet on the Western Front. Was a devastating great remake. And they won a ton of awards. I see the same thing for Conclave. If it strikes the public's eye, I definitely think there has to be a good mystery in here. It can't be just slap hazard. It's got to be a really involved mystery, and it can't be one of those where the obvious bad guys there. Like here comes the acting pope. Oh, he's the bad guy. We don't need that. We need to be seriously surprised by who the bad guy is. The acting is going to be solid. It's going to be great. Ralph Fiennes, of course, he did really, really well last year with the Gourmet movie. He came in there and yes,
Menu.
I mean he was fantastic. The Menu, he was fantastic in that. It's like, wow, that's cool as hell. And of course, Stanley Tucci. There's so many movies that he's in that's great. I was just hooked by the cast. I like the idea of a priest out there solving a mystery. I think that's just, to me, there's something intriguing about that. I'm not a Catholic per se, but I'm very curious to see how they go about catching whoever's doing this without guns or violence.
And it's not fair to this film, but when I saw the trailer for this film, I couldn't not think of Angels and Demons. That wasn't an awful film, but for being related to the Da Vinci Code, but it's a sequel prequel, so it's supposed to take place before the Da Vinci Code, and Tom Hanks has a weird haircut, and for whatever reason there's a nuclear explosion over Vatican City with Obi-Wan Kenobi parachuting in at the end when they're choosing a pope. Like, what? Even that sentence of me doing a spoiler recap of a film that came out 15 years ago, it's one of those where you see the film and you're like, for being based off a real life practice that one of the biggest churches in the world practices when choosing a new leader, that process should be fascinating and interesting in and of itself. We don't need a nuclear explosion with a parachuting Jedi to keep it interesting.
I know people were, but though I have to say though that movie was exciting as hell. I remember seeing
Was
it
it
with my
though?
wife. I remember seeing it. I've seen it with my wife, and they're chasing around the bomb to find the bomb. And the scene where the one person is thrown inside the water, and they're drowning, and Tom Hanks is like, help me," is Robert Langdon screaming to help, and he's pinned underneath the water, and then they pull back on the shot, and you see all these people come over there, lift it up, and save the man's life. I got freaking chills down my spine. I'm going like, that is amazing an amazing film, a scene in a film that could have been a little bit better. But that scene, though, is one of the best scenes. That's what I remember mostly about that movie. It showed that you can do religious thrillers. You can do a good religious thriller with good action and intriguing characters and not be called religious.
Obviously, both you and I are influenced by the Dan Brown films, the Da Vinci Code films. How does that inform how you look at this film, Conclave, and what you're expecting from it?
I'm expecting a cerebral film. It's not going to be like the Da Vinci Code or Angels and Demons in terms of running around and jumping out, and jumping in the planes and running through the cities. I think it's going to be more cerebral. I think it's a thinking man's mystery. Who had means, who had opportunity, who had motive to sabotage the process. And I think that is really what's going to be. That's really what's going to be here for this film. It might be the reason why it's going to be probably a lower budget film per se, because of the fact that not going to really. I don't think they're going to really depend on special effects or big explosions or anything else like that. I think it's going to be set in a small area. I'm all in for that. I want to see that more than I want to see people running up and down. I know the people will say, "Well, I want to see action." Well, you will, but you're going to see action coming from here, not necessarily from here.
Well, and different things come out in different films. This looks more like an internal monologue type of thing, where we're not going to get a fist fight in the bridge of a spaceship in this film. This is a film about choosing the next pope. Clearly, they spent the money to go shoot on location. I don't know whether they shot in Vatican City or not, but the locations that they shot on for this film are beautiful.
I think they got approval from the church for that, because I don't think without the support for the church, I don't think necessarily you would see such precision or such the uniforms being so perfect. I do think they got support from the church.
I'm not planning on watching this film in theaters, but it does look really well done, and I wouldn't be shocked if the O word, if there were Oscar nominations coming from a film like this. This looks like a film that could, I wouldn't say it's an Oscar favorite for nominations, but it definitely looks like a film that could get a stray nomination here or there, especially for cinematography.
Oh, yeah, cinematography, probably costume, set design, that sort of thing. The technical awards. Could it get a Best Picture award? I mean, if it's an independent, they probably won't make it onto the best list because Oscars are bought these days, not earned. So I would hope that it gets a nomination based on its merit, and that they won't have to campaign necessarily to get their movie on the list. Hopefully, it gets there on its own merit.
I wouldn't be surprised if this film directed by Edward Berger were to get a nomination here or there. I don't think.
I wouldn't be surprised either. It's not filled with a lot of young stars up and coming. Like we could have made this into an action thriller with a brand. They didn't go that route. There's not going to be any daring do Channing Tatum or Ryan Reynolds. It's going to be, so like I said, it's a thinking man's mystery.
Yeah, they're definitely going with the old guys here, and if Stanley Tucci is the young character, there's definitely an older cast, a legacy cast, if you will.
I know how close you two were. I'm here if you need to talk.
I'm not your coach.
It is about basketball on a Native American reservation. It looks a lot like
Hoosiers.
Yeah, it looks like Hoosiers, but set on an Indian reservation. I've never heard of any of these actors before, and that, I think, is a good thing in this case. It looks like they just went with good casting, the right actor for the right role, it looks like a very simple, like it should have been made by Disney, but thankfully it wasn't. It was made by Netflix. So the fact that it's not over the top syrupy sweet kind of thing, while still telling a good story based on an actual real life story. Now, how accurate this is going to be to whatever the real life story was, I don't know. I do love, though, the small town poor kids playing basketball. Can they rally? Can they grow? Can they come together? Can they tell a good story? Can they overcome some of their parts and play res ball? That's fascinating to me. And
the thing is, basketball is very, very. It actually might be the most popular sport on reservations across the country. There are college teams that go out there and they play. I mean, they play basketball. They play against bigger schools and whatnot. It's a very popular sport.
And it's one of the few sports that you really don't need. Baseball, you need, really expensive gear. Hockey, you need expensive gear. And I love all sports, but basketball's one that, there's a reason why it's one of the most popular sports at the Olympics right now. And there's a reason why, even though the U.S. started basketball and dominates basketball, there's a reason why the U.S. has had a hard time winning the gold medal at the Olympics the last couple of years. The last couple Olympics is because a lot more people are playing basketball worldwide, and you don't need a lot of money to do it. You just need a ball and some shoes. So because of that, I've always loved basketball. I love the rhythm and the flow of the runs that teams go on in basketball, the storytelling capabilities of following individual players, of overcoming. There's just something that is very true to the nature of the game of basketball, and the fact that we're getting a non-preachy story about Native Americans on the reservation and rallying, and we're getting a female coach of a men's or of the boys basketball team. I find a lot of this very fascinating, and the beauty shots that they got shooting on location. Clearly that New Mexico skyline, that beautiful butte, that was not a CGI butte. Everything about this, it just makes me want to see this. It's from writer-director Sidney Freeland. Never seen anything else that she's done before. It excited me so much that I put Resball in front of Kevin Smith films. So that's how excited for this film that I am. Comes out September 27th on Netflix.
I know about Native Americans playing basketball. They've had a rich history of playing basketball since Jim Thorpe. More and more Native Americans picked up the basketball, and they became really good at it. They came, they still are.
Was interesting too, and I kind of messed up the screen capture here, but for the director Sidney Freeland, she's directed a lot of episodic television over the last several years, and it was interesting because she directed one of the episodes of Star Trek Strange New Worlds, which is one of the best received Star Trek of the Star Trek streaming shows. But she also did a couple episodes of Reservation Dogs, and I've not seen that show, but a lot of people talk about that show, Reservation Dogs. Are you planning on watching this on Netflix?
I would love to watch this, but what are the chances of it coming out of physical media? It all depends. I mean, it's like that's really what it all depends who's putting it out. If this is a Netflix production, if they put the pony up the money for it,
it is.
I'll probably never see it because I don't have Netflix, and Netflix doesn't really put out physical media of their own movies. So my chances are only if someone actually bootlegs it, and that's what I really hate about Netflix, because they have a lot of quality movies, and I'd love to see them, but they don't release them. So.
And to be fair, I know Netflix does release some of their movies in theaters for like a week or two. I don't know if they're going to do that for this film in this case. My instinct says that they probably won't, because it feels like something that's going to come straight to Netflix, because it's not it's not basketball season, so that's not near the NBA Finals or the NCAA tournament. So there's really no timing issue in terms of this film. It kind of feels like they just kind of found a release date for it. So.
It's too bad it couldn't come out. Honestly, it's too bad that it couldn't have come out like in October. When collegiate, because the collegiate season starts end of October, beginning of November, and it would have been really nice to have this movie put into play during that season.
Yeah, that October 31st midnight. At midnight on October 31st, most of the teams do their midnight basketball. Would have been fascinating to see there.
I'll sleep with my door open, and the day that you find it closed is the day it's already happened.
There are lots of ways to live inside a tragedy. It's daytime, and you're alive.
It's one that I thought about including, and it looks like a really interesting two-hander with Julianne Moore and Tilda Swinton. Tell me about The Room Next Door.
I can't wait for this. I mean, this is like the king of independence, foreign independence. Pedro Almodovar, who has more great movies. He's sort of like Spain's Woody Allen. He comes up with some fascinating movies. He's the one that discovered Penelope Cruz and helped her make her into a superstar. Now we got Tilda Swinton and Julianne Moore. I mean, come on, two absolutely powerhouses.
I have his recent filmography up here. He did Parallel Mothers, which was one of the Oscar-nominated films from a year or two ago.
He's just got a lot of great films, and like I said, really probably more, just as much as good as his films are, is the fact he finds the talented actors to play in them. This is the first time he's worked with both either Julianne Moore or Tilda Swinton. Julianne Moore and Tilda Swinton are friends, but when the mother and the daughter start having conflicts, Julianne Moore's character gets involved in it. So she's lived next door, so she becomes part of the daughter and mother dynamic, even though she wasn't necessarily asked to be into that. And so we see the fallout about that.
They've been playing the story elements in the trailers, at least, pretty close to the vest. When I watched the trailer for The Room Next Door, to me it looked like Tilda Swinton's character was dying. Julianne Moore's character was helping her deal with impending death and going through that transition of death. Was that part of the story, or was I misremembering?
I just know that the daughter and the mother were having issues, and that Julianne Moore's character is the one that gets in between them. How we think about how many times a friend or a loved one has come in and offer you their 2 cents about a situation that they know nothing about, but they still feel, because they're your relatives or your friend, that they have license to do that. I'm speaking from experience with that, because I went through a lot of that when my wife was sick. I got a lot of advice, and I got a lot of words of wisdom, and I got all that, here's what you should do, or and it's like, it's stressful.
Solicited and unsolicited piece of advice.
Right.
The log line, they're playing it a little close to the vest, I think, which is probably a good thing. 2 really talented actresses being directed by a talented director. It's probably good that we don't know the exact.
And this is probably, of all the movies that on my list, this is probably the one movie more than any other that I see award season that will be all over it. For Oscar buzz, it'll probably be this movie here.
Yeah, and I wonder too, because when I was watching the trailer, it looked like the trailer was hinting at a past romantic relationship between the two of them. Whether that's there or not, or whether that influences Oscar voting, I'm not sure. But 2 really, really, really talented actresses. Definitely looking forward to this one. Didn't quite make it on my list, and I'm not quite sure why, but I love a good two-hander, and the fact that they're shooting in New York and they have. Clearly, this is a world that involves a whole lot of money. They have views of Central Park from their rooms. That world of wealth is always interesting.
It's very nice that you're all here at a time like this. We all want your father to transition as peaceful as possible.
This is the way it should be, the way he would want it.
This is his 3 daughters. This is Carrie Coon. This is Elizabeth Olsen. And this is Natasha Leone, as 3 adult daughters of a dying man who come together in his final days to try and patch up old wounds. It looks like, I would say two-hander, like The Room Next Door looks like a really good two-hander. This looks like a really good three-hander as we explore dysfunctional, alcoholic relationships between 3 women that look like they haven't been sisters, actively relatives in a very long time, and they're just trying to get through this situation with their dad. I'm a huge fan of all 3 actresses. I think Carrie Coon was really good in the Ghostbusters Afterlife. Obviously, Elizabeth Olsen has done great work on the big screen and in streaming shows. She did that murder that wasn't a murder, but her character actually did kill someone with an axe in real life. And then Natasha Lyonne, American Pie, everything else she's done. I'm a huge fan of all three of theirs.
I'm super happy for Elizabeth Olsen. I mean, she sparkles. Carrie Coon is really, really good. But I gotta tell you, I have a softness for Natasha Lyonne. She's, loud and brash. But the fact that we're able to sit here and talk about her acting in a movie is a freaking small miracle. After American Pie, she had a lot of problems. She had a severe addiction. She was shooting heroin. I mean, she almost died her self-destructive ways. I mean, and the fact that she was able to overcome that and get help and to put her life on track. I mean, just her life, just doing that in itself is a win. But then to be able to come back and do great acting, and doing it sober, I'm so happy to see her. I think she's a fascinating person. I mean, someone I would love to talk with. I mean, if I could get an hour with Natasha, of all three of those actresses, I would love to talk to Natasha first.
That is an interesting, which one you'd want to talk to first. Yeah, I think Natasha Lyonne would be probably the most fascinating of the three, overtly at least, in terms of the life that she's lived. And yeah, to see the comeback she's been able to do when we're talking about actors that have overcome addiction. She was never as high profile as him, but Robert Downey Jr. is the only other actor that I can think of that addiction completely derailed his career, and that he's able to get that under control and make a major comeback and become the Robert Downey Jr. we know today. Natasha Lyonne, on a smaller scale, kind of has done the same thing.
Another favorite actor of ours, I'm sure he's one of yours too, which I had no idea until I read about this, like had a severe substance abuse, severe, and got addicted to crack cocaine. Dennis Quaid blew me away when I heard that, because you started seeing him and doing some movies. He was still trying to work through it, and then you noticed how he went from being healthy looking. Some of his movies, he looks thin as a rail, like he's bone thin, and then he got clean too. And now he's doing quality work again. And the same thing with Natasha Lyonne. Honestly, she was like one of the best things in Blade Trinity. She really was good in that movie. If you really go back to her character, she plays such a sympathetic character, such a cool character, a blind ally of Blade. She was blind. Of course, we all see her from American Pie, but it's sort of like a one-dimensional character. So she made that character really pop out, and you really cared for her, even though she was really brassy and hands off. But she did have a heart, and you did see that through her performance. And to me, that's where I really got hooked. I know a lot of people saw her in Down and Out in Beverly Hills, but I thought she stole her scenes in American Pie, and then she just advanced on from there. And then
she was definitely the most well-developed female character in that film, because I love American Pie, but it is definitely a film about guys from the guy's perspective.
Right.
And the female characters, I think, in the first film are the most fleshed out they are in any of the American Pie films. But of the female characters, Natasha Lyonne's is really the one that jumps off the screen in terms of actually having emotional depth in not a lot of time on screen. But she is the one that delivers the most solid performance of all the female cast members.
Yeah, it's the one character you wanted to see more on screen too. You wanted to see her happy. When you watch her performance, the one thing you think of is like, I hope her character, wherever she plays, I hope she ends up with a happy ending. I don't know very many movies where that's ever happened for her. I've seen Carrie Coon before. She did a movie called The Nest with Jude Law that was just really freaky. She also did a room I think it's called The Quiet Room, which is where I first discovered her at.
She was really good in Ghostbusters Afterlife as the mom. We hear her voice, but you don't really see her on screen per se. She was in Avengers Infinity War and Endgame. There's 4 horsemen underneath Thanos. She's the female warrior there. And ironically, her character, who I can't even... Proxima Midnight, I think, or something along those lines.
Right.
Carrie Coon's character faces off against Elizabeth Olsen's character in Avengers Endgame. So It is fascinating to see that the fact that they had an adversarial relationship in the biggest blockbuster of all time, and now in this quiet little family drama, they still have conflict, which I find fascinating.
I think most MCU people, honestly, they wouldn't know Carrie Coon at all. I mean, they because she was heavily makeup and all that.
Oh, the
I don't
CGI
think
character.
I don't think
She wasn't even on set.
I doubt any single one of them could name a single movie that she did other than that one. I mean, she's sort of like a chameleon. I know she did one called, I think it's called The Gilded Age. It was a TV series. It was set in the turn of the century New York. It was about the different ladies climbing just trying to get into the social circles. And I think that Carrie Coon played the outsider, the interloper, so to speak. I heard it's supposed to be very good.
It was on HBO a year or so ago, and I know I watched like part of an episode, but it wasn't like it didn't grab me, so I didn't keep watching. There's something about the honesty, the emotional honesty, the emotional truth of the relationships between these three sisters coming together at the death of a parent is always a hard thing to go through. So that's something that interested me, and that's why it ended up at number 1 on my list. It was also one of your honorable mentions. Are you planning to watch His Three Daughters when it comes out in theaters? If it is in theaters,
if it gets played in my area, which is frustrating to me because I thought they had enough screens to play some indie films. Hopefully, the star power it has will get into a wide release. But how many people are actually going to go and watch a drama like that?
To me, this is one that I think, if it was done right and it was done with a low budget, any kind of success it has at the box office will be looked at as making money. That's my hope for it.
Are you interested in learning more about the way you can't come inside unless another woman is present?
My wife is home. Does that count? You like pie?
Heretic is...
Listen, you hear that noise right now? That's Dan falling off his chair right now. That I picked an A24 film as my number 1 movie. Dan just fell off his chair right now. What? Come on! I mean, I was shocked that you didn't either. I was shocked. I was like, oh yeah, we're gonna have the same number 1 again.
The idea is it's 2 missionaries going to a guy's house, and it's Hugh Grant. It's distinguished gentleman, 4 weddings and a funeral. He invites them inside, and good Lord, this guy is a psycho.
It's Hugh Grant, and yet he's playing evil. I mean, my God, and he looks creepy as hell.
He didn't even look as creepy in his mugshot for 20 years ago.
I cannot wait for this. This is probably the only A24 film truly that I have actually been looking forward to. This movie here, just the fact that got him to do this role. Could Hugh Grant open a movie today? A romantic comedy. Could he open it? No, not like he could 20 years ago.
No, not like that. But he has had a little bit of a renaissance, a Hugh Grant renaissance, if you will. He's done a lot of the films with Madonna's ex-husband, Hugh Ritchie, or Guy Ritchie.
He did The Gentleman.
Yeah,
which was a very fun film.
Yeah, he's done 3 or 4 films with him in the last couple of years that have been really good, and he's also done smaller roles in bigger films that you're like, oh, I didn't know Hugh Grant was in this film.
Yeah. See, whereas before it was the Hugh Grant opening the film.
Yeah.
Like he's the main star. He's the big star. It's 2 weeks' notice. It's Notting Hill, 4 weddings and a funeral. That sort of thing. But now he's no longer there for those kind of roles. He's pushing his limits. He's stepping out of his comfort zone. He's like, okay, how if I do something that nobody would ever expect me to do? And then you see him do a religious horror film, a thriller like this. I'm there for it. I'm so there. I can't wait to see it.
I have it at number 7 as opposed to your number 1. The one thing that drops it on my list is the whole, and you see it in the trailer, you see it, and I've kind of got it on a loop here. The renovation that he did to his house. I don't know if I can suspend disbelief that he could build all of that death trap by himself in a small cottage off in the middle of the woods like he is. I don't know if I buy that he has the home construction, home renovation skills to do that kind of a death literal death trap for people.
Look at John Kramer. Look at Jigsaw. Look at all the traps that he built, and he was sick.
Yeah, but he was using like real locations as opposed to remodeling homes. Like there was carpentry involved with Hugh Grant's character. This one,
yeah, but that it's not past the realm of possibility when you start thinking about some other killers that have come up with some unique ways to kill people. It's John Kramer, who was stage 4 cancer, can put a bear trap on some woman's head, or put poison in where you have to put your hand through the poison in order to get the key out. Oh, I think Hugh Grant could go ahead and homemade some crazy devices. But I just want to see what the supernatural angle of this is. I don't know. I don't think this is going to be just a straight out thriller. I think there's going to be some religious horror involved in this.
That is a recurring theme with your list. The religious, the dogma, the themes of it, the conclave, and
I love it. I'm gonna say it's so funny. I tell you what's really funny, Brian, and if you really pay attention to a lot of these channels that we talk about, some of the horror channels. There's so many people in the horror community. They can handle a slasher movie. They can handle a slasher movie. They can't handle the supernatural shit. They get heebie-jeebies over it. It's fun. It's funny. It's fascinating to me. Oh, it's true. Oh, it's true. They'll sit there and talk about Ghostface and Jason and Michael, or even though Michael is a supernatural entity, but they can talk about that. And but then you start talking about supernatural elements, and also they just get the heebie-jeebies about them. It's fascinating to me. I'm just so amused. I think what makes it more interesting to me, religious horror, is the fact that whereas before you look at Jason and you look at Freddy and all that, they're stories. They're made up stories, and they're told. I think what really gets me with religious horror, when you fuck around with a Ouija board, spell book, making a pentagram without words in it, you are dancing on a lot of danger. I mean, you're sitting out there grabbing a spell book and you're sitting and trying to braze a spell and you don't know what you're doing. We can actually reap a lot of damage. Now, whether you believe that or not is one thing, but I've seen it. Like when I see tarot cards, I can read your future. Go read somebody else's. I'm all right. I don't need you to read my future. No, it creeps me out too. I mean, I'm aware of it and I respect it. And I think what's really cool about this too is the fact that they chose Mormons. I honest to heaven, I have never seen two Mormon girls together doing missionary work.
It's more of a recent, last 15, 20 years phenomenon. When I was a kid, one of my close friends, he went on a Mormon mission, but his sisters didn't, and I graduated in the 90s. Apparently, this is more of like a recent, like in the 2000s development kind of thing. And
really?
when women go on their missions, usually when men go on a mission in the Mormon Church, it's at age 19. When women go on a Mormon mission, it's when they're 21. That's my. I could be wrong. I could be 100% wrong there, but that's my understanding.
No, that sounds right, because I know a lot of colleges get upset at BYU because a lot of times their players will go on missions and then they'll come back as 21-year-old freshmen, and they're already physically more in they're grown men, and so they say that the missions are unfair. But
like for example, I'm in Las Vegas. The University of Nevada, Las Vegas, or UNLV, used to be in the same league as BYU, Brigham Young University, and Nevada's right next to Utah, so they used to call the series between UNLV and BYU as the Sinners versus the Saints. So we used to. So there is a lot of interesting parallels and that sort of thing. The Wikipedia page does state that they're supposed to be Mormon missionaries. It does not say that on the IMDb page, so I don't know whether that's official or not. But clearly, that's what they're implying with the white shirts and the black name tags. So whether it is or whether it isn't, clearly that's what they're drawing from as an influence in implying at least with their characters. So I definitely think it looks like a good film. The only reason I didn't have it higher was because I didn't think that Hugh Grant could do that much carpentry, but I do think it looks like a really interesting film, and it'll be interesting to see how the characters do or do not survive. So, what do you guys think about our fall indie movie preview? Did we hit all of the indie movies that you're most excited to see this fall, or did we miss one, or two, or even three? Let me know in the comments section below this video. And also, if we missed one, what are those 1 or 2 or 3 fall indie movies that you're excited to see, and why? The why is the most important. Let me know in the comments section below this video. Also, be sure to click right around here somewhere. It pleases the algorithm overlords. It has a video that you think we'll want to watch next. Click on it or don't, but regardless, thank you for watching this video. I've been Dragon Movie Guy. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.